It's a Christmas Day game preview edition of Locked On NBA featuring one question for each team featured on one of the biggest stages the NBA has to offer. But for how long? Will Christmas Day games be a thing of the past in the NBA? That's all ahead today on Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On NBA. Thanks for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to get in on the regular season action with FanDuel because right now, new customers can finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm Doug Branson, host of Locked On Hornets and your Shot Clock Sherpa, guiding you through the NBA's biggest stories with the help of Locked On's local experts. And with me are two of Locked On's premier national NBA experts from the Locked On Nuggets podcast and senior NBA writer for the Action Network. We've got Matt Moore. And from the Locked On Bulls podcast, we've got Hayes. All right, we've got a ton of matchups to get to. We're going to roll quickly because I want to get one question answered on each of these teams. The first matchup, we're going to go out of order a little bit here. The first matchup that I want to talk about is Lakers at Warriors because these are two teams right now undergoing an identity crisis. And the crisis being they don't know what their identity is. And Locked On Warriors, they're just discussing where this franchise is heading. Is it in a youth movement, or are they trying to get one more for Steph? Let's take a listen.
Going all in for 36-year-old Steph Curry, 34-year-old Draymond Green, and the coach that's now been with the organization for, 13 years, whatever it may be. I don't know. It just, there's a part of me that's like, okay, Steph Curry is one of the greatest of all time. You may never get another generational player in, the next 20, 30 years. You don't have someone lined up to kind of take over. If it's not Kuminga, you don't have anyone in house to be that next guy. And whether you get him through free agency and acquisitions, I mean, maybe that's a possibility, but there's nothing that says any of their draft picks in the last 5 years is going to become that guy.
Okay, Hayes, which of these teams, the Lakers or the Warriors, do you think are closer to making one more run with their aging superstar?
I'd say the Lakers, because I think if you can get somebody to bring in here, if you can get some shooting, if you can get somebody to a center to move AD to the 4, I think that this team is closer than the Warriors are. I think they just also have a more realistic path to get what they need as well. The Lakers, they're willing to will and deal. The Warriors seem to like be aiming for like this aging superstar, this near star level player. And just for what's available out there, I don't know if they get in. I don't know if they even do, if it's necessarily going to fit in the best way possible. So I would pick the Lakers there because I think what they need is just easier to obtain this year at the trade deadline.
I just think that the Lakers are a better team. And, I get the record's going to kind of say it's not true, but if you look at some of the stuff under the hood, they look a lot more like it. They are number one in defense over the last 2 weeks, which I thought was notable. Like they've turned a real corner there, and they do have a core that has been able to make it out of the play-in and has won playoff games versus this Warriors team with where this roster in particular is at since the title. Like when they have not had those kind of guys, they haven't been able to get out of the play-in tournament. And I just don't see any reason why this team is any different. So I'm going to go with the Lakers.
Do you buy the defensive turnaround in Los Angeles? What have you seen over the past couple of games that has signaled that improvement?
A bunch of teams hung over playing in LA and then playing the Kings who can't shoot threes. But in general, I think the effort's been better. I think Rui Hachimura has been really good. They've started starting Max Christie, and that length has given them an advantage, even though I'm not very high on Max Christie long term. I think there are some things that they've kind of shifted and been able to move around. They needed some practice time. They got it with a cup. And I think that's been like a big part of it. We're seeing a lot of teams that are better right now because they just got 4 days of practice to be able to work on some stuff.
Hayes, what do you think? And how much of this is LeBron James getting a little rest?
Yeah, I think a big part of it is LeBron James getting rest. And, to Matt's point, like my team's one of the teams that's been benefiting and looking a lot better since they got some 4 days off. So I think getting rest is going to be a key thing. And this is why I'm going to keep saying it until it happens, which is going to be probably for the rest of my life. NBA, a bye week. Every team should have a bye week somewhere into the season. I think the more that we keep seeing that, there's more and more data and proof that, especially going to be adding in-season tournaments and things like that, get every team a bye week. You can make it happen.
Okay, let's move on to the next matchup. The San Antonio Spurs at the New York Knicks. This is going to kick off the Christmas Day festivities. The Knicks defense is improving, and they are getting major contributions from their starters, but Locked On Knicks points to a major weakness underneath that surface.
Offensively, like you just get zero from the bench. This is a team that I think just desperately needs some bench help at this point.
If for nothing else, just to make sure that these guys don't get burnt out, though. They all do seem to be in great condition, and nobody is making any comments. Like even Josh Hart would jokingly make comments, like last year when he was playing 40 something minutes a game about like, oh, I need a rest here and there, like, oh, I'm getting run into the ground, whatever. Nobody's making those comments this year. Everybody seems to just understand, like, if this is what we got to do to win, then this is what we got to do to win.
Right now, the Knicks have 2 players in the top 5 in minutes played, 3 in the top 10, 4 in the top 15. Matt, how much does that worry you when you think about them as a threat to come out of the East?
A lot, man. I mean, look at Boston. Like they get 30 minutes a night from Peyton Pritchard. They play those guys. They are religious about playing Luke Cornett and Peyton Pritchard, even in games that are big time. Like they still play those rotation guys. It's gonna be such a big advantage when we get there. We saw it last year. It's just really difficult to play this many minutes over the course of the season. It's not for a week. It's not for a game. It's not for a month because you're injury strapped. It's the whole season. It's 6 months of this level of intense physical basketball. And I think it does take too much out of these guys.
Yeah, it definitely takes a lot out of it. And that's unfortunately, that's kind of it's until the NBA actually cares as much about keeping players as healthy as they do about them playing in every game, which are very different things. You're going to continue to see players get worn down like this. You need time. And so it just happens, especially when you have, as many players playing as many minutes and you need that to be able to win. It's going to happen. And it is what it is at this point. Like the NBA doesn't care.
On the flip side, if they do stay healthy, rotations tend to consolidate when you get into the playoffs and particularly deep in the playoffs. So they'll be more prepared than maybe any other team with the starters having gone as many minutes and all of the chemistry that gets built up from that.
I love it.
Right.
If they survive, they're going to be great.
It's the gauntlet. All right, let's talk about the Spurs. Victor Wembanyama has been putting up eye-popping stats. The Spurs are 2 games north of 500 and in 9th place right now in the Western Conference. If they make the play-in, do you think they can be a serious threat to come out? Or is there something that you look at when you watch them play that you go, nah, not ready yet. It's going to prevent them from moving on. We'll start with you, Hayes.
No, I mean, I think that they'll be fine in the grand scheme of things. I think that they have enough talent there to be fine. Of course, there's going to be some concerns there, as with every team, but overall, like they're coached well, they play well, they fit together well. I think they'll be fine long term.
Are they going on the road in the play-in tournament and beating the Lakers? No. Are they going on the road in the tournament and beating the Clippers, Hayes, is my question for you.
Yes. Come on now. The Clippers? Come on. Yes. No, I'm just playing. The Clippers are pretty good. I don't know if they can go on the road to beat the Clippers. To be all jokes aside, I don't know.
If it's Wolves or Rockets or Warriors, I'm going to take those teams. I do think that next year is when we see this leap from the Spurs. I think this is the setting them up for that. I don't think that they're going to make it out of the play-in this year if they get in.
All right, this game will be simulcast on ESPN2, ESPN Plus, and Disney Plus as Disney's Dunk the Halls, a Mickey Mouse cartoon-themed broadcast. Now, we've seen the NFL do this with The Simpsons and Nickelodeon with their cast of characters. Are you into this? Are you into this idea of these cartoon-themed simulcasts, Matt?
Kids love them, man. Like they love. I will tell you as a parent, kids love things that are for them because so much of the world feels like it's not. Like they're not included, that they're not part of this, and then they're not able to understand this, that there's things that they can't really get. So whenever these sports leagues do things which are for them, for kids, they really connect with that because everybody responds to something that appeals to your identity. And I think that it's a really smart move by these leagues to do it. I think it's for fun. I don't think it hurts anything. I think it's a good call by them.
Ace, what do you think?
Yeah, it's a good call overall. I think it's not only just a good call. I think it's the right call that needed to be made there.
Can we get the players all wearing Mickey Mouse hats?
Oh, I would love that.
The ears.
I would allow it. I'll allow it.
All right, coming up, we've got more matchups to get to on this Christmas Day game preview edition of Locked On NBA. One question for each team. Let us know what you think, by the way, on YouTube, youtube.com/at Locked On NBA. Hit us up in the comments. More to come. Locked On NBA. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by Robinhood. With Robinhood Gold, you don't need a silver spoon to eat up the financial favors of the 1%. Robinhood Gold allows others to get the rates and perks usually reserved for the high society. Now, the resourceful individual with Robinhood Gold can earn the very liberal rate of 4.25% APY on uninvested cash and be rewarded with a handsome 3% retirement boost on IRA account contributions. Robinhood Gold provides the privileges of a high net worth for any net worth. These generous benefits are now available for only $5 a month. The new gold standard is here with Robinhood Gold. Sign up at robinhood.com/gold. Terms apply. For product-specific disclosures, visit robinhood.com/gold. Investing involves risk. Rates may change. Gold membership is offered by Robinhood Gold, LLC. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen every day. Your favorite NBA team has a free and daily newsletter. Go to lockedondaily.com, subscribe, stay up to date with the local expert analysis that you get on this show and amazing writing from Katie Heindel, Mike Shearer, and Locked On Fantasy Basketball tips from Josh Lloyd. Okay, so let's move over into the Eastern Conference where the Philadelphia 76ers are taking on the Boston Celtics. If the NBA had a do-over, they would probably, they'd want a little Cavs Celtics action here, right, Ace?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, flex that game. How about that?
Okay, well, apart from health, what's going to be the key? Here's my one question for the Philadelphia 76ers. What's going to be the key to maximizing Philadelphia's big three for a second half season comeback? And we'll start with Matt. And again, apart from health, what can they do to maximize that big three?
I don't know. I don't. Look, everything with the Sixers, I have taken all things Sixers. I have picked them up out of the NBA patch. I have put them on the counter. I have put them in a little Ziploc bag, and we'll just leave them over there, and we'll see where we're at come April. How do I figure out what this team is? How do I analyze the rotations? What do I look at with the schemes? I don't know who this team is. I don't know what they are because I can't get them on the court together for more than 35 seconds. So I have no idea what this really looks like. It's too small a sample for me to be able to have any real inclination of them. I have no clue, Hayes, who this team is, who they want to be, what they're going to be, and that's not their fault. It's just how it is. There's no way for us to be able to really say anything about the Sixers, short, medium, or long term. They're just a black box in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, I think it comes down to I know this is still kind of built around health, but they just need reps together. Like you need to see how these pieces are going to fit together, how they're going to play together. They just need more time. And honestly, I think the thing is what's needed for this team. They need to invest heavy research in to find the same time chamber that they have in Dragon Ball Z that Goku used to go train in. They need to go do that, and then they'll be okay.
I was reading something interesting I'm not going to have the source, but I'll put the link. I do have it buried in my tabs here. I'll put the link in the show notes for you to go check out. But they were interviewing Paul George, who has struggled to score in the few times that he's gotten to play with Embiid. And Paul George was noting how, I guess, surprised he was at how good of a passer Embiid was, and he wasn't really expecting that, and so he hasn't been cutting as much. He hasn't been doing the things to get himself open, just really expecting Joel Embiid to kind of go out there and make things for himself. So that may be a wrinkle that they could explore in the meantime.
Joel Embiid, it's nice to learn that Paul George doesn't watch League Pass. Like, that's the Sixers. Joel's been good on that. By the way, I actually put a time chamber on my wish list for Christmas, so I'm helping get that. So,
well, there you go. All right, let's talk about the Boston Celtics, and we're going to go to John Corrales of Locked On Celtics, who was fielding some questions about the fire that the Celtics may be lacking this season. Let's take a listen to that.
The season, it looked like the Celtics had a fire lit, but now it looks like they aren't even trying to get the number 1 overall seed. Why? They have not displayed the same level of intensity that they did last year. I think the long off season, or I should say the short off season and the long season, there's definitely a little conservation of energy going on. I think that's true of like Drew Holiday. I think that's true of even Al Horford, who's been aggressive shooting wise, but they're not pedal to the metal. Right. They're not. There's another gear, right? They're in third gear right now. There's 2 more gears that they can find. They're, I don't know, we have to say getting away with it. So I don't know that the fire has gone out. I just feel like they're biding their time.
Okay, so how much should Celtics fans worry about the Boston Celtics' perceived lack of intensity compared to last season? Hayes, we'll start with you.
They shouldn't be worried at all. I think you see this a lot when the team finally, when they learn what the process is to get to winning a title. And I know they didn't face the best competition. Every team that they faced was missing a key player. But when you get there, you kind of learn how to pace yourself better. And I think I hope that's what the Boston Celtics are doing here. Yeah, let the Cavs win the Eastern Conference. Let the Cavs get all the glory for what they're able to do. But when it comes down to winning it in the playoffs, I think that the Boston Celtics are going to be fine and they're going to turn it on. We've seen this before as far as teams like the Golden State Warriors put in a lot to win the most games in NBA history. They ended up not winning the title that year. So like, pace yourself. You want to pace yourself. You don't want to get anybody hurt. You have a lot of depth on the team. You've got Kristaps Porzingis coming back. Pacing yourself is perfectly fine. As long as they turn it on in the playoffs when it matters the most, that's the most important thing.
This is shorthand for they're not quite as good right now. I'm telling you, the Celtics team isn't as good as they were last year. Now, they can get there. I'm not like ruling it out that they're going to win the title. They're going to finish with like 55 plus wins. They're going to be a great team. They're not quite as good as last year. And some of that's just like ephemeral, but we like, well, there's nothing that's changed, so it's got to be conservation of effort. We have try-hard teams, right? Any team coached by Tom Thibodeau, try-hard team. But do the Cavaliers look like they're really burning the Jets? They don't to me. Donovan Mitchell's not putting up insane numbers. Like, they're just really good. Do the Thunder look like they're burning the Jets? No. So, like, what are we talking about here? The reality is that Boston, very quietly, if you look under some of the hood at some of the numbers, not quite as good. Like, still great. Going to be in the conversation. Can win the title. Not quite as good. And if they want to be as good, they're going to need to tighten up some stuff, because I do think it's like a matter of they're not executing at the same level. And I don't see it as intensity. I actually think that it's just hard to play that level of basketball. Finding that frequency that they found and staying at that frequency for 18 months is difficult. And that to me is what we're actually seeing instead of a perceived lack of intensity.
And we'll see if that fire is on display on Christmas Day against the Philadelphia 76ers. By the way, that article I was mentioning is by Kai Carland, his latest in the Sixers Wire. Paul George saying he's just a willing passer, and that's something I got to get used to, being a better cutter and reading space. So I got to get better with that. Let's move back to the Western Conference. The Wolves taking on the Mavericks. The Dallas Mavericks are proving they can win with and without Luka in the lineup, but are they the same threat to repeat as West champs? Let's go to Locked On Mavericks for more on that.
Completely underlooked right now, the Mavs are. I think they're one of the best teams in the league. I think they should be in every conversation right now as far as who can win an NBA title. I think it's Boston, OKC, and Dallas kind of collectively together in that top tier together. I don't know what else I can say to where this is the most confident I've been in a Mavs team and a roster and everything. You have the superstar in Luka Doncic that can carry you. That's the MVP candidate. You have the supporting guy in Kyrie Irving. You don't hear people say Dallas a lot right now. It's like Boston or OKC. It's one of those two teams. Honestly, kind of cool with it. Like, I don't care. I don't really get up in arms too much about the disrespect and like all this stuff. I think put the pressure on Boston. Put the pressure on OKC. OKC's barely done anything. Like, SGA's got to show up on the biggest stage and all this stuff. But sure, if y'all want to anoint them already like you did Minnesota last year, do your thing.
All right, Matt, why aren't the Mavericks being talked about as much as other top teams? Is that how you see it? Like Boston, OKC, despite their strong start?
I mean, look, I think there's Boston, OKC, and I'm going to throw the Cavs in there, and that's a tier. And then we can talk about Dallas. I think we talk about Memphis, and we can talk about probably the Knicks in that conversation as well. And I think that those teams can all win the title. I do think that the Mavericks, for whatever reason, are being as talked about, and they are a legitimately great team. They are awesome. They're so good defensively. They're so good offensively. When they have their guys, they're absolutely incredible. They're like 7-2 without Luka Doncic this season. That shows you how good the team is. Not just Luka, but the team. They are less dependent on him. He's taken a step back to make the entire team better. This is a legitimate championship contender, even though I would say, like, outside of one fluke finals run, they haven't done anything either. So I wouldn't get all excited about trashing OKC either.
Yeah, I think Luka's been, slided in a couple of ways. Not only the Dallas Mavericks, but also when you look at the MVP ladder, sometimes Luka slided in some cases. I just think that for some reason, there's this doubt around the Mavericks, like they didn't just make an NBA Finals. Like, they have all the talent in the world. They may be a better team than what they were last year as well. So while I don't have them up there with Boston, I don't have them up there with OKC. I can absolutely see a world in which the Mavs are in the NBA Finals. I can see that easily.
This is probably the fluke factor, right? And that they didn't come out like the Cavs did with their hair on fire.
Yeah.
And then everybody's going to lean on the fluke at that point. So,
yeah. And the other thing is their record would be a lot better. Like, they've lost a bunch of one possession games. And those are honestly coin flips. Those go the other way. And we are probably talking about them as in that top tier. But on the other hand, you could say, like, well, why didn't they win them? They've had clutch problems in the past. So, there's levels. We'll see how it works out.
All right, let's turn our attention to the Timberwolves quickly. They keep taking embarrassing home loss after embarrassing home loss, and there's a lot of finger pointing going on right now. Hayes, we've talked a lot about the Wolves needing to shake this roster up via the trade market, but is it time for head coach Chris Finch to move around the starting lineup or the rotation to give them a better chance to win in the short term?
Yeah, I mean, why not try something? You're struggling in certain aspects. I think at some point you do have to try something different. Now, you don't want to just do things different just to do different things, but I think when you look at it now, like, unless you plan on making any changes to your roster, which doesn't seem like it's coming, I know they may like it to, but we'll see what happens there. Try some different matchups. Try to find something to give your team a little bit of edge, and also maybe bring some different energy here, because you've been lacking that in certain areas. And you do have players that are hungry here. You do have players that could bring a different dynamic. So why not mix some things up and try something new?
With Anthony Edwards on the court, they've won their minutes. With Mike Conley on the court, they've won their minutes. With Rudy Gobert on the court, they've won their minutes. With Julius Randle on the court, they've won their minutes by 46 points. With Jaden McDaniels, they're minus 27. Like, as much as I think Randle has made the team worse and they need to move on from him because of some spacing and how he fits with this team, Jaden McDaniels really stands out when you both on metrics and on tape as a guy that's causing some issues. So I really think that the best move here might be short term, move Nickeil Alexander-Walker into the starting lineup, see what happens, have him play Jaden's role and see how that goes. Because you need to get your offense up. If you don't want to do that, maybe get Dante DiVincenzo in the starters to boost up the offense. But I do think they need to make a move, and because I don't think that this current team is working as it is together.
All right, coming up, we've got one more matchup to go, the Denver Nuggets and the Phoenix Suns. That's the nightcap. Plus, I want to ask Matt and Hayes, what's the future for the NBA playing on Christmas Day with the NFL Death Star approaching? We'll see what they have to say coming up. Today's episode of Locked On NBA is brought to you by FanDuel. The NFL playoffs are almost here, but it's not too late to join in on the excitement of the regular season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a chance to finish the season strong with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. That's right. Just bet $5, and if you win, you're walking away with $250,000 in bonus bets to play with. I love using FanDuel because they make betting easy and they make it so much fun. From picking which players will score touchdowns to guessing total team points, there's always a way to add some thrill to the game. Whether it's the big plays or the small moments, FanDuel has you covered. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com today to join. That's FanDuel.com, where you can get $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. More Locked On NBA ahead. Thanks again for making Locked On NBA your first listen. Let's take on the final matchup of Christmas Day. The Nuggets taking on the Suns. Both teams seem to be struggling under the weight of their own championship windows. But Locked On Suns, they're pointing to another factor in Phoenix's recent losses, 5 out of the last 7.
I think it is so disingenuous to say that this team is not struggling with locker room issues with these trade speculation. I would like to think that Ishbia and Jones and Budenholzer have been pulled into a room with Beal and Booker and KD and said, hey, listen, we know there's some things going on right now. We want to be transparent with you. We want to let you know what's going on. I know it's bothering them because it wouldn't be an issue if Beal would just come out and say, I'm not accepting a trade to Miami Heat. And I think that when that happens, guys can sometimes think, okay, Beal doesn't even want to be here. Booker's hurt again. Is this team even going to get better if you add Jimmy Butler to the mix? Does that fix much? I think they are so far in their own heads, it is not even funny. They aren't even showing up to game. I don't even think they like each other right now. I think that's how bad it is.
It's a very interesting question how much these trade rumors affect or trade noise affect teams. And I've got two panelists here, Matt Moore and Hayes, that cover teams that are both embroiled in some of these trade rumors. So, Matt, we'll start with you because you cover one of the teams that are in this matchup. How much of it is an issue for both teams?
I think it's on an individual level. I think the chemistry thing is overblown, though. I don't think it affects a locker room with trade concerns. I think there's enough professionals. Like, how many guys in there have been in trade rumors consistently? Like, this isn't a young group. Yusuf Nurkic has been in trade rumors. KD's been in trade rumors. Royce O'Neal's been in trade rumors. Bradley Beal's been in trade rumors. Like, these guys know the deal. So I don't buy that. If you listen to Locked On Suns, it's funny because we had a clip from them, I think a week ago where they were like, this is a championship team. And then I listened to them over the weekend and it was this is rock bottom. It's December 20th. Things move fast. Life comes at you fast in Phoenix. But with the Nuggets, do I think MPJ is probably impacted by the trade rumors? Yeah, I think it's probably true. Are the Suns a little uncertain? Yeah. But both of these teams have one core problem, and they've touched on at the end, is that they don't like playing together right now. You can watch these teams, and as much as everybody says body language is not a real thing, I call BS on that. You can watch teams and know whether or not they're having fun playing basketball together, whether they want to play basketball together, and whether they're connected. And neither of these teams are connected right now. And until they solve that, don't worry about the trade problems. Get your guys on the same page and get them connected, and then you can figure out everything else.
Yeah, I mean, players, these are all veterans as well. It'd be different if maybe it was a young team. This is their first time in trade conversations. Matt just named out such big parts of those rosters. All have been in trade talks or been traded or been moved or signed to other teams. It's just the business aspect of it. You got to block those things out. You got to go out there and do your job. I'd say this, if you're at the point where trade rumors, right, are bothering you that much to where it's messing up your chemistry or something on your team, you weren't that committed. There were some other things going on before that started anyway, in my opinion.
Okay, I want to end today's show getting a little existential about one of the NBA's high holidays here, the Christmas Day games. A lot of people view this as sort of the real start to the regular season, and it's always been a featured certainly pre-NBA Cup, it was one of the featured events in the middle of the regular season schedule. But lately, it's not that the NFL's Death Star is approaching; it's that it is right outside of Alderaan. It is here, and so the NFL scheduling games on Christmas Day. It looks like they're going to continue to do this in the future, and they may even encroach onto some other holidays that the NBA is traditionally programmed around. Hayes, how do you feel about the future of Christmas Day games and the NBA? Or should they be looking for other ways, other than the NBA Cup, to juice up the NBA regular season?
Yeah, I mean, put on teams that people care about the most. I mean, I know that's difficult when you're building a schedule to know exactly what teams are going to be healthy, what teams are going to make moves, whatever it is. But you can't fear it, right? You're going to have to embrace it. The ratings are already down, so it is what it is. At the end of the day, you have to make sure, and this goes back to a conversation that we've all had before on the show, if you do a better job at building stars, building these guys and promoting their personalities, because this is probably a time where there's more personalities in the league. There's somebody on every team that has a great personality for the most part. If you do a better job at marketing that, it'll be fine to have counter programming. Not everybody's a football fan. Not everybody's a basketball fan. I think if you have the better matchup out there, people are going to tune in.
I mean, if we're going to compare it to the Death Star, get in the trenches and find that weak spot, right? For me, it's about guerrilla warfare. All right, so they're going to come in, they're going to take over Christmas and put these games up there. Work around their schedule to the degree that you can, and then do things like, oh, well, if you're going to have this gap on Thanksgiving for 2 hours or at the end of the night, we're going to attack games on then. And we're going to start games like 30 minutes. So in case this is a blowout, hey, if you want to watch a competitive game, you click over the NBA game. Take over some of these other spots that are traditionally NFL spots. I would also, and we talked about this with the Cup, instead of All-Star Weekend, here was the other idea I had for the Cup. Make the Cup in the same city as the Super Bowl on Friday night. So if you go to the Super Bowl, you get to go see the NBA Cup Championship on Friday and the Super Bowl on Sunday. You go in, you watch the Cup Championship, you go to the parties that night, you wake up and hungover on Saturday, and then you go to the game on Sunday. If they're going to do this, the NBA needs to become a parasite and just leech off of the NFL. Guerrilla warfare is the way to combat this.
I just say bring back the Christmas Day jerseys. What happened to those? Why did we, if you're going to do this thing, then why not do it all the way and go pomp and circumstance? Like, bring those babies back. I'm desperate. But also the Hornets have never been featured on Christmas Day, so I'm really desperate for that as well.
Oh, but don't worry. It'll happen. Maybe they'll show a game on TikTok and they can just play it on there.
It would be a Christmas miracle. There's no doubt about it. If the Hornets were featured, it would be a Christmas Day miracle. All right, any other ideas for the NBA? I mean, I like the idea of linking these things eventually. And I think one of the ideas was to feature some kind of NBA Cup action on Christmas Day, to find some ways to sort of fuse all of these ideas together and make it more cohesive. But I am a little bit concerned. I mean, I've always enjoyed watching these games on Christmas, and I'm afraid of it going away.
I think. Look, the reality is like the NBA can't compete with the NFL. Like, it just can't, man. And I don't think they're willing to take a loss on, like, it's embarrassing if the league's like, here's our marquee day and we get killed. Like, that's why they hide so much. Now, do I think that they should do more like hiding the Thursday night games? That's ridiculous. Thursday's an NBA night, and hiding on those I think is a little ridiculous. The other thing here, we're going to say this a million times on this show because we really do care about it. If you reduce the schedule, you can also move it around. In which case, you realize like the midpoint of the season is in January when the NFL playoffs are going on. You move it back a little bit and you're like, all right, football's over. We got the back half of the schedule and great games coming up. The games aren't trash because the guys aren't exhausted. Actual matchups with playoff implications, those types of things. This is how the NBA needs to think. There are owners I've heard that want to move the NBA, their start to Christmas Day. I don't support that because I selfishly, I want to go on vacation at some point in my life. But in general, like, I get the idea of it. But if the NFL is just going to take over Christmas anyway, there will also be years, by the way, where the NFL can't do this. If the NFL is on a Monday, they can't do it. Or Tuesday.
That's true.
Can't do it. Like, they just can't make this happen. And so I think there will be some restrictions about making this more difficult for the NFL, which is only going to make the NBA abandoning it harder because you kind of have to wait and see what the calendar says about the NFL before deciding if you're going to keep doing it or not.
And if all else fails, SpongeBob game. That's my idea. Just more cartoon characters. Find all of the cartoon characters that you can. Have them all converge on the same day. It's all the children are our future.
There you go. Let's get there. Although I would say, again, if you also want to compete with it, going back to the Cup, I know that nobody wants to be like, you're going to make them play leave. They're going to lose Christmas, but it's like, yeah, for $500,000, that to me seems like not a bad plan, because if it's the Cup game and there's actual stakes on the line on a day when everybody's off, the NBA's got to lean more into this kind of stuff. You need stakes, narrative or otherwise. That's one of the problems I think with the Christmas Day games is, what's the narrative on Christmas? Oh, LeBron versus Steph, round 700. Wembanyama is going to get stomped in New York. Maybe the Sixers will play. We need some rivalries, and we need them badly to prop up the NBA slate.
All right. If you like what you heard today, subscribe to Locked On NBA wherever you get podcasts, including YouTube. Thanks so much for making Locked On NBA your first listen. Enjoy tonight's action. Enjoy the holiday. Thank you to Matt and Hayes. Be kind to each other. We're going to see you right back here on Thursday's edition of Locked On NBA. No show on Christmas, but we're back to recap all of those games. And Locked On NBA Game Night, same thing on this feed. See you then.
And to all a good night.